Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I hope you have your thinking caps on because today we're going to be doing a bunch of math. That's right, we're going to be doing math, everyone's favorite topic. So the reason we're going to be doing a lot of math today is because I want to break down and discuss the state of video game console sales. And with the Nintendo Switch continuing to do extremely well here in its 7th year of life, with who knows how many more years ahead of it, we're in an interesting scenario right now because the Nintendo Switch has done so very well that it's actually potentially knocking on the door of the best-selling video game console of all time, the PlayStation 2. And so what I want to talk with you guys about today is something that 6 or so years ago, I never in a million years could have imagined I would be talking to you guys about. And it's the fact that I kind of feel like it's all but a guarantee that the Nintendo Switch will probably surpass the PlayStation 2 in unit sales, which would make the Nintendo Switch the best-selling piece of video game hardware of all time. Now, of course, it's a little too early to say for sure, but I gotta tell you guys, when I look at the numbers, and we're gonna kind of review and go over those today, I feel like we're in a situation where it's basically a guarantee without actually being a guarantee that the Nintendo Switch will become the best-selling console of all time. So as of this past week, Nintendo recently had their updated financial fiscal numbers for their investors. They shared the updated status and sales on a lot of their products, which of course does include the Nintendo Switch. And so, as of now, the Nintendo Switch has sold 129.5 million units in its life. Now, anywhere in the world and at any time, that is an astronomical, borderline unfeasible sales number to hit. It is such a monstrous success, and most of us who are Switch fans or Nintendo fans are happy to see it. And look, I'm going to be honest with you guys, the Nintendo Switch is far from my favorite video game console. It's not even my favorite Nintendo console, but it is a great console, and I do think that when we see this 129 million sales total for the console so far, I have to say that given the quality of the hybrid nature and especially the insanely strong library, that the Switch does deserve the success that it's seen so far. And so I'm very happy to see it, especially for Nintendo, who happens to be my personal favorite company on the market. And their last console, the Wii U, which I love to death and I will defend to my dying breath as a great console with a great library, it was not a hit. It was a failure in terms of sales, which breaks my heart, but it is a reality. And so coming off of that unfortunate sales disaster to just the most insane rebound I think we've ever seen in the video game industry with the Nintendo Switch, it's awesome. And so 129 million units right now puts it as the third best-selling piece of hardware of all time. You can see with this list here, number 3 at 129 million units, right behind the Nintendo DS at 154 million units, and just barely above the DS is the PlayStation 2 at 155 million units. Now here's where the math is going to come in, guys, and it's pretty fascinating and mind-blowing when we really break down what we're seeing here. 129 million units. The console just sold a ton of units in its last year. It is still performing. Yes, sales are slowing down, okay? That is without a doubt. Sales are slowing down for the Switch year over year, absolutely. Which is why we all think that they're planning on transitioning to a new generation console sometime in the next year or so. But even though they're slowing down and declining, they're still knocking down pretty solid numbers every year. And at 129 million units, it only needs 26 million units more to surpass the PlayStation 2 and to become the best-selling video game hardware of all time. And I gotta tell you guys, even here in 2023, with slowing down sales in the 7th year of the console's life, and we all think a Switch 2 may be revealed in the next 6 to 18 months, I'm telling you guys, 26 million more units for the Nintendo Switch, I think that's basically going to be easy for the Nintendo Switch to do over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. Here's what we have to do. We have to take a look at the past few years in terms of annual sales for the Nintendo Switch to understand where things are trending and how achievable this number might be. Reminder, 26 million units is all the Nintendo Switch needs to sell between now and the rest of eternity to become the best-selling piece of video game hardware of all time. Now, 2 years ago, they sold 23.06 million units, which is incredibly strong, right? However, the year following, so basically we're going to last year, they sold 17.97 million units, all right? So they went down around about 5.5, 6 million units, so a pretty steep decline. However, last year was still 17.9, almost 18 million units. And again, we're going to match last year's 17.9 million units to the total of 26 million it needs to sell to become the best-selling console. And if we take that 17.9 million they sold last year, and again, we're continuing to trend downward with sales, currently Nintendo is forecasting and estimating another 15 million units this year, okay, for the current year we're in, the current fiscal year. 15 million units, that's only a 2 to 3 million unit drop from the prior year. If that holds true and they hit that target of around 15 million, give or take a little bit, that puts them in a 10 to 11 million unit remaining number to still surpass that 26 million needed to become the best-selling console of all time. Again, remember, I told you, we needed to do math here, and I'm not somebody who knows how to make animations and graphics and all these things to animate the numbers I'm talking about. Hopefully you can follow along with this well enough as I share what I'm noticing here. But it's pretty important to notice how small these numbers actually become. Essentially, at the end of this current fiscal year, there is a chance, again, if Nintendo hits their estimated 15 million, could go up, could go down, okay? So they might not hit that target, and it could go either way. It could go better for them, could go not as good for them. I think that there's a chance, if they hit the ballpark of 15 million, that when this fiscal year ends, the Nintendo Switch is probably going to be sitting somewhere around, I don't know, 138, 139, maybe even 140 million units sold. Again, if they hit that 15 million target. And that just continues to drastically reduce the gap between the current Switch and the PlayStation 2. And if we follow this trend where 2 years ago they went down by 6 million, this year they're projecting to go down by only around 3 million units. If that continues, that means maybe the following fiscal year, next fiscal year, after the one we're in currently, maybe they're going to be shooting for 11, 12 million units sold. And you add that to 140 million units, and you're looking at the Switch maybe sitting around 151, 152 million units. Now, again, full transparency, I'm not an actual industry analyst. I'm only going off of the trends and the numbers and everything that Nintendo reports to us. And I'm also just filling in the gaps, and I am making a lot of assumptions. Anything could go in any direction. The Nintendo Switch could just suddenly tank out of nowhere, including if a Switch 2 is introduced and people do stop buying Nintendo Switches outright. I don't think that's the case. I think we're going to have several years of overlap where a Switch and a Switch 2 will be on the market, and they're probably going to price drop the current Switch, and they will, for the next 3 to 4 years, still be selling the current Switch several million every year, even after the Switch 2 is introduced. So I am using those assumptions to get to these projections and guesses I'm talking about. But if I'm being real, I feel pretty good about these, and I would be curious if any of you feel like you can poke holes in this logic, but I think the Nintendo Switch is absolutely on track to surpass the PlayStation 2. Now look, I love the PS2, man. I think right along with the Switch, it's one of the greatest consoles ever made solely by library and by volume. And just like I think the Switch has earned its 129 million units sold so far, I think the PlayStation 2 earned and deserved its 155 million units and its current positioning as the #1 best-selling console of all time. Like, I think that's justified. The PlayStation 2 was a great console, and it happened in one of my favorite generations. I'm a bigger fan of the 6th generation than I even am of the current generation. And I like this current generation. I love the PS4. I love my PS5. I love the Switch. I loved the Wii U. You know, all these consoles, PS4, PS5, Wii U, Switch, they're all part of this current nebulous sort of 8/9th generation that we're actually in right now. So it's not so much about picking favorites or anything. I think that they're all really great and really fantastic, but I'm just looking at the numbers, man. I'm looking at where things have been trending, and again, you can't deny the Nintendo Switch slowing down its annual sales numbers, because at some point, you've like saturated the market, and you've sold enough of your home console device to so many people that no one needs to buy them anymore. I mean, the Switch does lend itself to multiple purchases per household for sure, which is one of the things that I think has helped it sell so well. And I mean, hell, I have one and my wife has one. So we're a 2-person household, and we're also a 2-Switch household. And we're actually a 2 PS5 household. We each have our own PlayStation 5 as well, so that's just kind of what it is. But all this comes down to kind of wrap this up and end today's math lesson, right, that I feel like I've been giving you guys, spouting off all these numbers and these projections. And again, just guesses. I'm just a fan guessing, so no one needs to take this too seriously if I'm right or if I'm wrong or whatever. I feel pretty good about my guesses here, but like I said, it could go anyway. To wrap this up, it just comes down to, even though the Switch is slowing down sales year over year, I personally think, even with the Switch 2 probably coming next year, I think the Nintendo Switch will be manufactured and sold and available on the market for at least 3 more years, okay? And that does include with the price drop, which will itself convince even more people to finally decide to pick up a Switch. In fact, if they drop the price by like $100 and the Switch 2 comes out next year and Switch 2s are impossible to find, there will be plenty of people, maybe not you and me, but there will be plenty of other consumers that will say, I can't find a Switch 2, but here's a regular Nintendo Switch and it's only $199 or whatever the price may be. People will buy that Switch if it plays out that way. So I just feel like with 3 to 4 more years on the market, per my guess, and if a price drop happens, even with the Switch 2, we're selling 15 million Switches this year. Maybe we sell 10 million next year. Again, 26 million is all the Switch needs to sell to surpass the PlayStation 2 over the course of the next 3 or 4 years. I don't see a world where the Switch doesn't achieve it, you guys. And so, even though, like I said, I'm just a fan predicting and guessing and that I could be wrong, ultimately, I feel pretty confident saying we're going to be living in a world where the Switch is the best-selling console of all time in the next 2, 3, or 4 years.